What if the person they labeled as a storm was really a lighthouse? They attempted to shatter you, but you became proof that their falsehoods were a house of cards. They created a phony, shallow image of you and disseminated it like gossip. Yet while they were busy painting you dark, the cosmos silently illuminated you like a full moon. They dubbed you the villain, but now people are looking back and recognizing that the true threat was never you. It was the storyteller. The truth shines through falsehoods, and your vitality cannot be dimmed. While they were sweltering in the darkness of their dishonesty, you were rising into a truthful light. They are concerned not because you failed, but because you did not. They buried you behind false lies and vitriol. Yet your radiance is so palpable that even those who once believed them are beginning to question everything. This isn't simply retribution, it's justice acting on its own. The truth has a way of burning through falsehoods, and the mask they donned is beginning to peel apart. They never knew that your quiet was not a sign of weakness, but of metamorphosis. You didn't spend energy defending yourself since the universe was already preparing your case. You were too busy developing, expanding, and uniting with something so great that no slander campaign could harm it. Every time they laughed at your name, the cosmos added a new spotlight. Every effort to diminish your value engendered more respect from those that matter. And now that the dust has settled, what remains standing? Not their words, not their falsehoods. It's just you, solid and visible. They despised that the more they lied, the more you were live evidence of their deception. They despised the fact that their image of you deteriorated while the real you thrived. They despised the fact that people no longer look at you with distrust, but with admiration. The reality is, they never despised you for being awful. They despised you because you were strong, misunderstood, and tough to manage. You were never too much. You were just too genuine for the phony world they created, which is now disintegrating. The same lips that previously spat venom are now mute, knowing deep inside that they have exposed themselves. Lies only have power if people choose to believe them. When that agreement crumbles, so does the falsehood. And that is exactly what is occurring right now. Stand tall. You don't need to prove anything. You've already done so by living, shining, and refusing to be what they thought you were. You never needed to clear your name. The truth did it for you. And when their fantasy disappears, your presence becomes the reality that people believe in. This marks the start of your redemption arc, which they never saw coming. The more they tried to fix the harm, the more the universe gave you the microphone. They didn't only fail to destroy you, they paved the way for your return. If this truth strikes a chord deep inside you, it is intended for you. Please subscribe to God Connection and help spread the word so that more souls may make their way through the darkness. You're not alone. You are a member of a force. The mask is falling. The mask is finally beginning to slip off. Number 1. When they pointed fingers at you, they forgot that each of those fingers was covered in their own dirt. The loudest accuser is often the most accomplished liar in the room, quivering with the weight of their own reflection. This was not just talk. It was psychological warfare dressed as phony concern and polished smiles. They didn't simply speak falsehoods about you. They projected their own shadows onto your name, like a warped mirror. They anchored every wound they brought to your chest. Every imperfection they hid inside themselves was sewn into your identity. Why? Because if they could depict you as the issue initially, no one would be able to recognize the true calamity. Have you ever gone into a room and felt the air tighten, not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence undermined the delicate fiction that everyone was holding to? That's precisely what this was about. Your sincerity caused their masks to sweat. Your candor made it more difficult for them to execute consistently. The truth you live by poses a threat to any place accustomed to deception. So, instead of confronting themselves, they created a chorus to tear you down. Imagine a mirror entering a masquerade. That was you. But instead of removing their masks, they attempted to destroy the mirror. They couldn't handle the light you brought, so they launched a preemptive attack, altering the script before you could speak. They portrayed you as the villain in their play before the audience had time to find out who the true monster was. They called you selfish as you were bleeding out. They deemed you unstable while concealing their own breakdowns behind closed doors. They accused you of being theatrical while they turned their life into a never-ending show for attention. What's the most toxic part? They conveyed those falsehoods so convincingly that you started to doubt your own reality. That was the strategy: confuse you, isolate you, undermine your confidence, and keep you too preoccupied with self-doubt to expose them. But this is the bit they didn't expect. They assumed you'd break. They expected you to claw, yell, and fling dirt to establish your cleanliness. But you didn't. You declined to roll in the mud with them. You allowed them to chat while you changed. You let them weave their tales while remaining mute, allowing the cosmos to reveal the truth in its own time. Now they are afraid, because people are realizing that your light never needed to be defended, and their falsehoods are rotting in the open. Projection is only effective when no one looks too closely, but time pushes people to look. The more people examine, the more they realize you don't fit the narrative they told. Your life is not consistent with their charges. Your energy does not match their labels. Their disguise is peeling, revealing the truth. You are not who they said you were. You are the opposite. They labeled you weak, yet you persevered. They labeled you false, yet you kept true even when it cost you everything. They labeled you dangerous, but the fact is that they couldn't control you. A moth despises the flame not because it has harmed it, but because the flame demonstrates that the insect's world was formed in darkness. That's you. You didn't set out to expose them, but your sheer presence shattered their delusion. They panicked and attempted to put out your fire, but instead they spread it. People are muttering and replaying memories in their heads, understanding how much never made sense. The audience, which previously nodded along with the falsehoods, is beginning to see the wriggling liar for who they are. And that, without fury or reprisal, is your revenge. You did not need to destroy them. You just had to survive them. Their house of cards, based on your name, is crumbling, and they're rushing to fix the holes in their sinking ship while you've already departed to safer seas. You didn't just withstand the defamation. You prospered despite everything. Now you are live evidence that falsehoods do not cling. Rather, they reflect. And it is their nightmare. Because exposing a falsehood brings the liar down with it. They meant to immerse you in disgrace, but now they are drowning. They started the fire, but you turned it into a wildfire that they can't control. Let them stumble over their words. Allow them to rewrite the past in desperation. It will not rescue them. Your truth is loud enough to be heard without raising your voice. You were never a villain. You were the mirror. And now that it's broken, all the world can see is their genuine reflection. If this message resonates with you and you'd want to help support this vital work, please click the Super Thanks button and donate $10. This keeps the area alive with truth, light, and divine clarity. The truth has been put in motion, and everything they constructed on falsehoods is crumbling down. Silence is your greatest weapon. Number 2. They interpreted your quiet for surrender, but in reality you were rebuilding in a language they would never comprehend. The most dangerous person in the room is the one who does not speak, since silence in the hands of the enlightened is a weapon. You did not withdraw. You recalibrated. Healing in quiet is how soldiers sharpen their swords when the adversary believes you've vanished. The actual storm started the moment you walked away. You didn't behave out of fear. It was an act of mastery. They wanted you to make noise, fight back in desperation, and grapple with their falsehoods in the muck. They wanted you entangled in confusion, swinging aimlessly and pleading to be heard. Instead, you walked into a purposeful quiet that they couldn't decipher. You offered them nothing, no answers, no defenses, and no tears to fuel their narrative. And that was your checkmate. Consider a bomb going off in a room, and the person being accused is suddenly gone. They expect the commotion to cease with your disappearance, but it just becomes louder. The mess spreads. The same debates emerge. The same toxicity persists. Only now, there is no one to blame. That's when the questions begin. Was it really them? Or was it always this bad? This is what occurs when the truth disappears. It leaves behind a quiet that exposes everything. While they were using your name to hide their dysfunction, you slid into a holy silence and began doing the one thing that genuinely worried them: healing. And it was not simply superficial mending. It was a profound, soul-anchored reorientation. You were not hiding. Rather, you were rebuilding from the inside out. You took every wound they left you with and turned it into knowledge. You changed the solitude they intended as punishment into a place of development. You did not lose your voice. You recognized that it was too valuable to squander on falsehoods. While they yelled your name and blame, your absence started to speak for itself. The turmoil they said you generated was still there. The cacophony they placed on you became even louder. And others who had before doubted you started to focus on the underlying root of the upheaval. It was like a haunted house that blamed one person for every creak and chilly shiver until that person left, and the ghost began shrieking even louder than before. That's what occurred when you walked away. Their falsehoods were exposed. Their dysfunction no longer had a decoy, and the attention started to shift inside. Whether you're asking whether you did the right thing by not defending yourself, the answer is yes, certainly. Because they never sought the truth, just control. They did not want clarity, they wanted turmoil. And your silence deprived them of both. You didn't walk away from the fire they started. You let it burn without you, enabling everyone else to see what it was made of. Perhaps you were concerned that they had persuaded everyone before the truth could be revealed. Let them. Time is unstoppable, and a chosen one's quiet is worth more than 1,000 desperate falsehoods. The cosmos has a way of delivering truth just when it is needed. The people who matter have already connected the connections, and they don't need your voice to make sense of the tale. Imagine sowing a seed in complete darkness. Nobody sees the roots developing, but when it bursts through the dirt, it is unmistakable. That was you. They didn't see the job you were doing while they danced on your name, but now that you've risen, they know your stillness was not a departure, but an entrance. You were studying them. You were repairing the portions of yourself that had formerly relished the turmoil. You were learning how to protect your energy so it could never be hijacked again. You were developing resistance to the manipulation that they formerly employed so freely. They can no longer approach you in the same manner. They cannot provoke, read, or utilize you. And this lack of control is driving them nuts. They're like somebody shrieking at a closed door, believing you're still inside, only to discover you've gone long ago and are now screaming at their own reflection. That's what your quiet accomplished. It was not defeat. It was supremacy. It was grace. It was the discipline of allowing idiots to play while you quietly created your dominion. When you cease responding, their falsehoods will unravel on their own. There's no reason to resist. There's no need to exact retribution. Simply truth, time, and divine timing. They are now caught in the aftermath of their own performance. You crushed their illusion without moving a finger. Never dispute the power of quiet again. You did not forsake the fight. You merely realized that not every conflict required your presence. Some fights are fought by serenity, patience, and the peaceful force of healing. You did not lose any time. You regained it. While they were telling tales, you were rewriting your soul. And you aren't simply healed. You are impenetrable. They are well aware of this. Truth ages like fire. Number 3. Truth ages like fire, and they're suffocating on the smoke. Time may not yell, but it never lies. It works softly, removing masks piece by piece until nothing remains to hide behind. They assumed the clock was on their side. They assumed that if they made enough noise and repeated their falsehoods, time would eventually bury the truth. But this is not how time works. Time improves eyesight. Time rearranges memories until only the genuine ones remain. And now, the same power they relied on to defend them is destroying their phony narrative. It's like a home constructed on sand, lovely on the outside, but doomed when the storm hits. That is the version of reality they produced. When you stood back, the storm didn't stop. It only showed the flaws that had been hidden. People started to see something they'd been too preoccupied to notice previously. The common denominator was never you. It was them. The instability, the poison, and the never-ending drama did not go away when you left. They only expanded because they no longer had a scapegoat to carry their mess. Without a mirror to reflect their dysfunction on, it was all exposed. And then you understood you didn't need to say anything. Life spoke for you. When the truth is revealed, a microphone is unnecessary. All that is required is time. Now you're quiet, which you bore with elegance, echoes louder than all of their charges combined. People are paying attention differently today. They are remembering. They're connecting the dots. And the focus is inevitably moving to the real root of the rot. While they were attempting to hurt you, you were not only mending, but also evolving. Their blows did not shatter you. Rather, they initiated a full transformation in which you are no longer accessible using their previous strategies. What once wounded you now flashes by like harmless sparkles. What used to absorb your energies now seems like distant static. You didn't just endure them. You outgrown their whole emotional environment. Every lie they told you became fertilizer for your soul. They attempted to poison you, but you converted it into medicine. They underestimated you because they perceived suffering as destruction, not change. However, you have evolved. You removed the shell of who they said you were and stepped into a reality so powerful that their falsehoods seem silly. Time did not bury you, it uncovered them. Your transformation is a contradiction. Number 4. The lie is destroyed, yet you're still standing, stronger than ever. And that's their biggest nightmare. You did not only clear your name, you were the proof. The finest retribution was never retaliation, but rather evidence. The louder the lie, the more forceful it falls. And when truth enters the room bearing peace like armor, everyone feels it. This was the moment they had never planned for. They staked everything on the idea that their falsehoods would destroy you. They wagered that your quiet was a sign of weakness, that the weight of their defamation would cause you to collapse, that you would eventually break down and become the same tale they spun. But time is gone, and you didn't just refuse to fall, you ascended. You grew, you shined, and now your metamorphosis is a live counterexample to every claim they've ever leveled. Imagine someone creating a story about you as unstable, manipulating, and chaotic, and then entering into a room months later to find you calm, focused, smiling, and unshaken. You move gracefully. You talk with warmth. You don't flinch when your name comes up. That's not simply healing, it's development. And it undermines the basis of their whole story. People are taking notice, which is incredible. The same people who formerly agreed with the smear campaign now stand with you, watching you walk around the room with warmth, sincerity, and ease. They're puzzled. How can someone so calm be called volatile? This is when flaws appear in their belief system. Their thoughts begin to wrestle with what they perceive and what they have been taught. That is cognitive dissonance, and it is eroding away at the falsehoods your foes previously taught you. You're not looking for validation. You aren't defending yourself. You are simply being. And each stride you take in calm assurance erases the picture they attempted to create. You did not demolish their falsehoods. You have outlived them. You lived in such stark contrast to the filth they spewed that your integrity became the greater voice. The people who previously cheered for you are now rushing to explain why you're still flourishing. Their words used to flow effortlessly. It's as if they're swimming against the stream of truth. They're working harder, lying louder, and developing new illusions to keep the illusion going. But it is slipping. Gossip that once flew off their tongues now requires retracing, mental acrobatics, and hushed terror. Meanwhile, you aren't playing. You're alive, blooming, and producing. You did not just refuse to reply, you reinvented yourself. You aren't who they said you were. You never were. And now the evidence is undeniable. This is no longer about what they say. It is about what others see. Your tranquility is audible. Your steadiness is crisp. Your truth is resonating in spaces you have yet to explore. No matter how many variations of the lie they attempt to peddle, it no longer fits because you've become the contradiction, the living, breathing evidence that they lied, and they're running out of places to hide. The fourth domino did not just fall, it revealed the full pattern. You didn't just survive the fire. You walked out of there with ideas for your own rebirth. That, more than anything, is what they can't bear. Unshakable and untouchable. Number 5. They wanted you shattered, but you returned entire, whole, and unshakable. They attempted to fracture you, to crush you into bits, unaware that pressure does not necessarily produce dust. Sometimes it produces diamonds. The ultimate dread of a liar is not only being caught, it is having to watch the person they attempted to destroy rise again, unbreakable. You not only grew, but you also became a gravitational force. Steady, undeniable, impossible to ignore. You now possess the same presence that they said would crumble. They are taken in by the energy they previously ignored. You became quiet and returned holy. If they weren't already terrified, they are now. Your metamorphosis has reached a level that they cannot reject, belittle, or explain away. This is not just emotional healing, it is spiritual progress. When you step in, the mood shifts dramatically. It's the type of old presence that demands attention without saying anything. They assumed you were simply being silent, hiding, and nursing your wounds. But what they see today is a serenity they can't fake, a stability they don't comprehend, and a tranquility that bothers them because it shows they never shattered you. They may have delayed, diverted, or even injured you, but they could not reach your core. Their illusions are panting for oxygen now that you have risen to your full strength. Imagine a hurricane blowing across everything. When the sky clears, it is not the loudest home that stands out. The well-rooted tree remains still. That's you now. Your presence is no longer about showing your value. You are the value. You walk in truth, and that energy reorganizes the space. People can sense it. Strangers feel it. They may not know your whole tale, but they are aware that something inside you has irreversibly changed. And this is what eats away at the enemy's soul. This growth is not a mask. You didn't make yourself feel better with forced grins or phony positivism. Your brightness is genuine because your suffering was real. You went through the fire and allowed it to form you, when others might have hardened into bitterness. You softened into strength that bends for no one. You let betrayal educate you, but it never defines you. They once called you reactive. You now react with such precision that they are unsettled. They said you were resentful. You exude a peacefulness that makes people itch. They said you were a phony. But today, every note of your energy sounds genuine. Imagine them creating a weapon to harm you, only for you to melt it down into gold and wear it as king. That is how your life is right now. They are unable to deal since this is not performative. It emanates without effort and is carved into your energy field. You've become unshakable, which scares everybody who formerly relied on your volatility. They now have to watch as others lean into your light, respecting and trusting you, finding refuge in the serenity they once attempted to destroy. You were portrayed as the villain, yet now you are the sanctuary. You were tagged as the issue. However, you are now live evidence that healing is real, feasible, and very powerful. This is when their terror turns to stillness, not because they've changed, but because they can't explain how you won without fighting back. Deep down, they know you didn't simply heal. You became untouchable. The domino effect. Number 6. The web of falsehoods unraveled as people started to connect the connections. You can deceive people for a time, but not forever. Eventually, even the silent ones begin to voice the truth. A false narrative can only last as long as no one pays attention. However, the moment others start watching, it starts to crumble. That is precisely what occurred when they learned you were not the story's villain. The whole writing shattered, like a badly written play with no storyline. You did not resist their falsehoods. You have outlived them. This is the moment your adversaries never saw coming. The audience awakens. Because no matter how loudly someone lies, time teaches others to recognize patterns. Stories cease adding up. The same audience that previously nodded along now tilts their heads, asking, if you were truly as toxic as claimed, why are you the one who appears healed? People are designed to see patterns, and when they watched you remain calm, grounded, and consistent day after day, week after week, month after month, the spell started to break. You did not retaliate. You did not unwind. You did not gossip. You just kept developing. And the contrast between your tranquility and their incessant commotion became difficult to overlook. Imagine two individuals going through the same storm. One emerges dry, radiant, and stable. The other is still soaked, yelling at the clouds and blaming everyone for the downpour. Who do you think people will start questioning? That's precisely what occurred. Quiet spectators started comparing notes. They were able to recall specific instances. The jigsaw pieces began to snap together in secret thoughts, quiet looks, and whispered discussions. You've never required a defensive squad. The onlookers became your witnesses. They observed how controversy followed your accuser around while you stayed anchored. They observed how you grew while your accuser remained stagnant, repeating the same bitterness. They haven't spoken yet, but they are thinking, and their quiet is no longer an expression of agreement, but of thought. Your adversaries are now caught in the trap they set for you, since the more they attempt to defend their falsehoods, the more ridiculous they seem. If they're unstable, people wonder, why do they move with grace? If they're manipulating, why do people feel safer with them than with you? These subtle queries erode your accuser's credibility. Every time they open their lips, their position diminishes. While you've been living evidence of healing, they've been locked in the same pit, hurling stones from the same vantage point, clinging to a tale that no longer reflects the reality you represent. Their script has expired, yet they still hang on to it as if it were gospel. They can't fix it unless they confess they were wrong. They cannot keep it alive without seeming obsessive. Their narrative is no longer credible, not because you exposed them, rather because reality did. You were a live contrast to their character assassination. It's as if they're holding up an old, ripped picture of you as the actual, evolved, shining you enters the room. The disconnection is evident. They sense it. They can feel the looks, subtle misgivings, and unsaid inquiries in the eyes of those they formerly commanded. Their influence is dwindling rapidly. You never had to raise your voice. You simply had to keep walking. And today, the individuals who matter most are able to distinguish between noise and reality. They're noticing you. The sixth domino did not just fall. It broke the illusion for everyone watching. Number 7. They believed they were breaking you, but the cosmos was just cracking you open. True initiation does not come with shouts or acclaim. It comes with fire, silence, betrayal, and the type of suffering that creates gems from dust. They thought they were punishing you, but, in fact, every strike was preparation. And now you move like someone who met themselves in the dark and made it through the talk. You didn't just level up, you awoke. What they intended to destroy you became a portal to your spiritual power. You now walk like a person who knows precisely who they are. Dear Father, I pray for the deepening of my faith. Please let me believe you even when there is no tangible proof. Let me believe in your eternal presence, knowing that you will never hurt me. I recognize that your thoughts for me are ones of success rather than harm, and that you want me to have a prosperous future. Thank you, kind and everlasting Father, for always hearing my voice. I give this prayer to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provisions. I am thankful for your presence in my life and the richness you provide. If this video spoke to you, please like, subscribe to God Connection, and share it with those who need to hear it. Leave a comment below about your trip and how you're getting ready for your own victorious homecoming. If you'd like to help, please consider making a $10 gift via the Super Thanks button. This allows us to consistently improve our content in order to provide you with the best possible experience. Your donation spreads God's message and gives hope to others. Do not stop here. Keep shining brightly and face your fate with confidence. See you next time. God Connection sends blessings to all lovely people.